everybody. Great to be back again for another Wednesday. I told everyone last week, if you were here, that Kevin would not be joining us, but yet here he is. He is a man of dedication and actually, I think I said I fired you from your job, didn't I?
You may have.
You just won't go away.
It didn't stick.
Excited to dive into account-based marketing use case for Nearbound data, and we're coming from three of the four corners of the country of the U.S. here today. We've got Kevin in Boston. I'm down in Florida, and Jessica's out there in California. So Jessica Fewless from Inverta. I know Kevin told me like, oh, Jessica's perfect because she has a background in product and MarTech and services and partnership. Like every element of this kind of all the different parties and stakeholders involved in a Nearbound approach. You've kind of been a part on every side of the table. So I'd love to just hear quickly from you a little bit about Inverta and what you do there and just your background.
Yeah. So Inverta we call it a B2B marketing services firm. So we really help clients maximize their pipeline and revenue generating potential, right? We take their strategy and we can help actually put it into practice. And so one of the main disciplines we focus on is account-based marketing with a lot of our clients, but not everybody's here for ABM. So, we just do, your basic demand gen campaigns. We do a lot of work with technology. Tech audits have become front and center, especially over kind of the last 2 years where everybody needs to be a little bit more efficient with their budgets and their resources, and technology is a great place to do that. So we've been focusing a lot there as well. I started with Inverta 2.75 I don't know, year ago. At this point, I started as a client partner, which basically means, running strategy and basic account management for our clients. But about, mid-year last year, so about a year ago, I was talking with our CEO and I was like, look, partnerships are becoming more and more important. Technology is becoming more and more important. So it's probably time for us to really build a full-fledged partner program. And so, kind of did it as a side hustle for the second half of 2023 or 2022, and then officially rolled into the director of partnerships role when we hit 2023. Before Inverta, for 7 years, I was actually with Demandbase. So to your point about being on the product side, so I definitely was on the MarTech side, and that's where, I, really helped build the category around account-based marketing. Demandbase was kind of a first mover, and then folks like Terminus and 6 Sense and stuff came into the fore. But I was there when the first, ABM new wave was created and those sorts of things. So it's been really fun to help kind of build the discipline of account-based marketing and really see a lot of marketers really take to it and see success with it within their organizations.
I love it. We're going to get into the specifics here, the weeds, but I just comment. I talked to Tyler Calder, the CMO of PartnerStack, earlier today, and he just sort of mentioned something kind of interesting is happening. More and more marketing people are getting really interested in partnerships strategy. And we're starting to have a lot of conversations with marketing people, not just partnerships people. So I don't know, maybe there's something happening. There's a little bit of something in the wind where the marketing leaders are, looking for how to pull in, how to tap that network. I mean, we talk about, this is the who economy. Your buyers are asking, who do I go to rather than how, and you should be asking the same instead of how do I reach my buyers, who can reach my buyers. And maybe we're seeing some of that happening. I'm just curious if that's, anecdotally or any impression you have on are marketers starting to think more about partner ecosystems?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things going on. So one, data is front and center for everybody, right? Everybody has more data than they know what to do with, but they also know that they should be leveraging data once again, to be more efficient, to be smarter about their campaigns and those sorts of things. And one great source of data is partner data, right? We all know, from if you're on the tech side of things, that if, you're integrated with particular other technologies, it makes your product stickier, right? So you want to know who those partners' customers are, right? So that you can sell, or if you're all within the same account, you want to make sure that those integrations are there because it's going to make that renewal or that upsell that much easier for you downstream. And that gets into kind of the customer side of things, which is also, I think partner is kind of following customer by about 5 years. About 5 years ago, people started to kind of think about customer marketing a little bit differently. 10 years ago, customer marketing was seen as an advocacy function. Now it's seen as a revenue generating function, right? Customer lifecycle marketing. And so customer marketing, instead of being in corporate marketing or kind of being standalone, is now typically being folded in under demand gen, growth, campaigns team, right? Because it's just another form of demand gen. Just they have a very specific target account list, right? Which is your customer base. But they should be leveraging the same types of campaigns, the same types of product launches, those sorts of things, but putting kind of that customer spin on it, right? And then focusing on how do you get the most out of those customers that you have? How do you keep them and how do you grow them? Which has really kind of taken extra emphasis kind of since the start of 2020, when everybody was like selling new logos is really hard. So we need to focus on our customer revenue. So I think, customer kind of got folded under, and now I think partner marketing is also taking that same kind of approach in a lot of organizations, because it was always standalone. I mean, I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with where partner marketing is actually under their biz dev team in sales, right? It doesn't even sit under marketing, but now it's starting to get folded in. And instead of being this separate discipline, once again, it's part of that campaigns, part of that demand gen growth team, right? So you think about your direct marketing, you think about your partner, either extension or manifestation of that, and then also thinking about your customer programs, all under the same umbrella.
I love it. I love it. Well, Kevin, it looks like you go ahead and jump in.
I was just curious, Jessica, if you have an opinion on sort of what else might be motivating that move internally, right? Moving that function of partner marketing into sort of the core marketing group from a BD place or wherever it lives. Do you find, or do you think that it's one side sort of continuing to drip and push and finally being sort of like accepted in, or do you think it's coming from the other side? Sort of like, hey, we need to look at different things. Hey, what have you been doing over here? Come on in and join us.
Yeah, I think the last 3 years, as much as they've been tough for marketers, I think it's actually forced marketers, marketing organizations, CMOs, CEOs, CROs to really take a hard look at how they're going to market. There's that adage of what got you here isn't going to get you there. And I think a lot of people have felt that viscerally over the course of the last 3 years. So they're trying to be creative. They're trying to think smarter and do things differently, right? And I think largely partnerships has been an untapped resource. I mean, I've been in partner marketing for almost 2 decades because yes, I'm that old. And it's always been kind of this stepchild kind of function. I don't think it's fully been embraced by most organizations. I myself have been at times a very frustrated partner marketer. I worked at, large companies. I worked at Autodesk for a time. And, my partners were Intel and Dell, right? Big logos, lots of budget. And I would go to, our product team and our field team. And I'm like, hey, these guys want to do a joint marketing campaign with us. And they're like, nah, I got it. Like, I'm like, you don't want the reach and you don't want the budget of Intel and Dell to help with your programs. They're like, no, I've already thought of my campaigns. I already can achieve my goals with what I've done. So I don't want to add partnerships to it. Right. It was always seen as this other kind of naggy thing. And now I think it is fully being, brought into the fold as far as, kind of upfront planning and, just kind of almost another channel for that go-to-market.
Well, that's a great transition. I know you've got some slides, Jessica, and you can share your screen anytime to, having the partnerships people come to marketing and say, hey, we should do some stuff with partners. That's very disruptive if you've already been through the planning phase and you already have things going. But starting at the planning phase, like how let's get started on the, how do you actually go about, building that account list and tapping into some of that partner intel along the way?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I've only got just a handful of slides here today. We wanted to make this more of a discussion, but I did want to bring a couple of things to today's conversation to start to kind of get people to think differently about partner marketing and partner data. And so, what I have here are kind of three standard uses of partner data, or three uses of partner data. One, the standard. Next is the targeted, and then third is the foundational. And I would say, when I get into it here, the standard is going to be, most people are going to go, yep, that's what we do today. But I think the targeted and the foundational are going to be ways to kind of start to stretch your thinking about partner data and partner marketing and just partnerships in general as a part of your go-to-market strategy. So the standard is really around co-selling and co-marketing campaigns, right? So we were just talking about, kind of those standalone campaigns that partner marketing has typically engaged in, right? So, but the way to use the data here is really to identify, okay, based on, prospect overlaps or those sorts of things. Okay, how are we going to go to market together from a co-selling and a co-marketing perspective? I, as I said, I've been doing this for, almost 20 years at this point. And I just remember the headache of sharing spreadsheets back and forth. Right. And how much of your data do you hand over? And there was always just this game with how are you going to come up with that, shared list, right? And now it's like so much easier because products like Reveal just allow you to just share it. It's dynamic. It's always up to date. And you can just go in there at any point and say, when I'm sitting there with one of my counterparts at one of my partners, we constantly pull up platforms like Reveal and go, okay, we want to focus on our customers that are your prospects for this campaign, or vice versa. Or, hey, let's go together. We want to do a true co-selling campaign. We've built kind of an offering. We want to go after our partner overlap, or not partner, prospect overlap. Great. It's right there at our fingertips. We take a look at it. We download it. We share it with people on our sales team, within our marketing team. I can share it with marketing and say, hey, we want to, earmark this segment for this particular campaign. Can we remove it from the rest of our demand gen campaigns, right? Makes it super, super simple. Now, like I said, though, that's typically the way that most, marketers and sales teams have been using partner data to a greater or lesser extent more recently. However, now, per our conversation before I dove into the slides, is really starting to get demand gen more broadly, your campaigns team, your growth team, to more think about leveraging partner data for things like segmentation, right? Which accounts do you or do you not want to include in a campaign based on what partners they're currently working with or what other partner technologies they have? It also is going to help you tailor your message so it will resonate better with the folks in that campaign. I can think of off the top of my head, and we can kind of riff on this after the slides, but just times where it's like, oh, we know if we're a services firm, right? And we work with a bunch of different technology companies, Demandbase and Drift and those, Path Factory. And we tailor our message to each of those three different technologies customers based on what we know about those technologies, why people typically buy those technologies, and the struggles they might have really implementing and seeing the value of those technologies, right? So our campaigns get a lot smarter and our messaging is much more on point when we leverage the data for those sorts of things. So anyway, and then last but not least, when we're thinking about campaigns, all of a sudden we're like, hey, this is swirling around a topic that's relevant for one of our partners. So now this is a great opportunity. Once again, instead of having partner marketing out to the side over here, rather, demand gen says, hey, we're swirling around this topic. These 2 or 3 partners might have some really smart things to say about this topic. They might, be interested in, co-marketing this webinar, this campaign with us, right? And really start to amplify, what you can do alone as a demand gen team, through working with your partners. And then the last slide here is what Isaac was kind of alluding to earlier, which was around building your target account list, right? I've got a bunch of sources of data that we use when building your target account list. And, this is, technically an ABM discipline, but I would argue that most marketing teams should be creating at least an ICP, if not a target account list that they're going after. We don't have limitless budgets. We don't have limitless headcount. So you should really be focused on accounts that are a good fit for you. Not, I'm really glad that folks like the go-to-market partners are starting to socialize this concept more. But everybody's always talked about, you learned about it in college. If you got a marketing degree, your total addressable market. That is a completely irrelevant term, right? Because there are accounts out there that sure you could sell to, but you don't want to for a variety of reasons, right? And so you really want to whittle it down to what go-to-market partners has termed the total relevant market, which I love, because it takes out those accounts that are just never going to be a good fit for you, right? You know that they're going to be a high churn risk for you. They're going to require a lot of resources to retain them and grow them, right? So it's just not potentially worth it for your organization. So, but in building your target account list, you're going to look at a lot of different data. You're going to look at intent data. You're going to look at the engagement that those accounts have already had with you directly from a marketing perspective. You're potentially going to want to bring churned or closed lost opportunities into the fold. Obviously, everybody starts with things like firmographics and technographics to really kind of say, okay, are they in the right industries? Are they with the right size? Those sorts of things. You're going to want to look, as I mentioned, at that churn data, right? Are there accounts that are just too small for you to sell to, even though you never want to say no or turn away potential business? Sometimes they're just not worth selling to because they're going to cost you more in the long run than the revenue you're actually going to bring in from them. So, kind of, okay, where do we start to kind of draw that line? Obviously, you want to bring in your sales rep regional knowledge and give them a forum to be able to contribute to that list. But then it's last, but certainly not least, is that partner data. And really taking a look at, hey, if the customers of these 3 partners are just like a surefire bet for you, great. Put them on your target account list, right? That's kind of a very basic way, but also sometimes, you're kind of like, well, we probably want to have, 500 accounts on our target account list and we're only at 300. Well, hey, look at, your partners that are most closely matched to you and who are their prospects, right? And maybe, they've already done this exercise, so maybe it's worthwhile adding them to your target account list as well. So anyway, so that's kind of high level, but happy to kind of, just, open it up and have more of a conversation.
I love it. It's interesting because almost every one of those bullets on that list, I hear fairly commonly from marketers, but the last one, I basically never hear partner data. Like that's just something that I don't hear almost anybody. So it's almost like, I don't know, there's like a first mover advantage for those who understand this before it proliferates and start to take advantage of that information. I'd love an example. If you have a concrete example, when you mentioned, utilizing this information in a campaign of like a specific campaign. So let's say you find a lot of overlap with a certain partner. What might a campaign look like that's going to use that, let's say, in the not just who is targeted, but in the messaging itself? Like, are you gonna specifically call out, hey, customers of whatever partner name, you should check out this integration we have with them. Like, are you getting to that level of specification where you're tying the campaign itself to the knowledge that they're a customer of that partner or maybe a prospect? Like, what do some of those look like in practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on if you're going to be partnering with your partner on a campaign or if it's just a direct campaign targeting potentially their customers, or those sorts of things. So, well, one instance is, when you partner or when you sponsor like a partner event, like if a partner has, their user conference or they do a big webinar or whatever else, right? That's a very specific one. Like, hey, don't just say, if it was me, for instance, hi, we're Inverta. We do all sorts of things, click here, check us out, schedule a meeting. It's like, no, hey, like, we did the go-to-market lab with Rift earlier this year. the way I followed up to that campaign was very specific to customers who have drift, right? It was like, hey, conversational marketing. Well, and some of them had drift, some didn't, right? So the ones that didn't, it was like, hey, conversation marketing is clearly top of mind because you came to this event, right? And you were thinking about these types of things. So, here's what we know about conversational marketing. And oh, by the way, we're an official partner of Drift and we have lots of clients and here's some logos that, right? So just being very specific on that messaging, because it was just funny. I actually just sent it to our head of marketing yesterday after Forrester. We had participated in an event with a bunch of other partners. And I got one of the follow-up emails from one of the partners. And it was literally, hi, we're so-and-so. And, click here to schedule a demo. No nod to the event that they were in. No nod to, the really who the host technology was, nothing, right? Whereas we took a very different approach, very specific, very tailored to that partner who had hosted that event. So, I think that's one way of thinking about it. But, then there is kind of the, right now we're doing a joint campaign with both Demand-Based and Path Factory. And we have literally built a service offering that speaks to kind of the challenges that they have with getting new clients on their platforms, which is we want to try it before we buy it kind of thing. And it's like, great. And typically, if they don't have a strategy for how they're going to use it, they're not going to see success with a trial. So we're going to bring our strategy. We're going to also bring a trial of the two technologies, right, to the forefront. And, all three of us are going to market together with that offering. So that's kind of two different ways of thinking about that data.
That's really cool. I've sort of wondered about, some future fun marketing use cases. I don't know, maybe you could even do this now somehow, but let's say you've got a dynamic website and where it shows, we have customers and you list the logos of customers. If that could actually be, if you take like Clearbit data or something of those website visitors, and then you make the logos change to show them companies that they're partnered with, or like some of those kind of personalization things where you're tapping into that overlap data in some unique ways. I think could be pretty interesting to see where this goes as marketers get more and more savvy with it. Kevin, you unmuted.
I did.
Bring it.
I'm curious. So Jessica, you're obviously not the only team that focuses on ABM, and I've talked to a handful as we've thought about like what could this look like with Inverta plus Reveal for clients that need this sort of help, right? But one thing that has come up in some of those conversations is just the challenges and sort of inefficiencies of building target lists, right? I'm curious if you have any sort of point of view on what partner data brings to that process from an efficiency standpoint. Does it allow you to do anything faster than you could maybe a couple of years ago when this work was being done? Or you think about that process just of building the target list, going through all of that criteria that you show on that third slide, right? Do we or are we able to speed up any of those pieces by leveraging partner data more effectively? If the answer is no, that's fine. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Speed up. Like I said earlier, the not having to share spreadsheets back and forth anymore, right? But rather being able to just get that data at our fingertips at any moment. That is quicker. I think it's more, it is a more informed target account list, and one that is going to have, help increase your conversion rates, right? When you're thinking about account-based marketing, you're thinking about, okay, over year, one of the metrics you look at is what percentage of my target account list can I convert into opportunities, right? Each year. And, the first year you're doing ABM, it might be 20%, and then 25, and then 30, right? As you add more data that makes your list smarter, that's part of what makes that conversion rate go up. And I think partner data is one. We've worked with hundreds of companies on their ABM strategies, and I don't think one person has leveraged partner data for building their target account list, right? So if there's one takeaway from anybody on the webinar today, it's like, hey, if you're building a target account list, use that partner data. It's going to make those conversion rates and that efficiency of that list just that much higher.
When it comes to kind of using this data, are we talking about multiple so you're running the partner overlap, so you're using, Reveal for that. And then how are you combining that with sort of these other data points that you're using to create that target list?
Yeah. Getting it into your CRM and your marketing automation solution are key, right? Because once again, just like having it at your fingertips, being able to go into the platform at any point, see those overlaps is important. And it's dynamic, which is also great because we all know as soon as you export a spreadsheet, it's old. it's old data, right? So having it in there, being able to import it into your CRM and your marketing automation just allow you then to turn on campaigns on a dime, right? Because if you've got an account list, right, in Reveal, then if you can then turn it into a contact list in HubSpot, Marketo, Pardot, wherever, your whatever marketing automation of choice you have, we happen to have HubSpot, right? It just makes it, once again, I don't have to download spreadsheets, upload an account spreadsheet, an account list, turn it into a contact list. All that just happens as part of our workflows. And I can actually have campaigns kind of set it and forget it. So as new accounts come into an overlap with a partner, it can automatically funnel them into a nurture campaign, right? Like I said, we know, I mentioned drift earlier. We know here are some things that, accounts really struggle with, and realizing they see the value of drift, but realizing the value of drift is a whole nother thing. And so when we see those overlaps, we can import that account into our nurture that says, hey, so you're a new drift customer, here's something, right? And just automate that, which is kind of nice from that efficiency and that scalability perspective.
Love it. I love it. Kevin, any other topics or things that we didn't get to on ABM marketing with Nearbound data?
Well, I think I'd be curious, Jessica, if you have any thoughts. I don't know what our audience here today is as far as their bridge into marketing, but you, as someone that's served as a client partner and plenty of experience, right, over your time aligning to the C-level, if there's any ways that partner leaders should be sort of having this or driving this conversation forward with their CMOs, right? So like we talked about where marketing is a few minutes ago about, all right, now taking a little bit more of an interest in partnerships and partner data. But if that's not happening yet, right, are there any ways to talk to a CMO that's going to heighten their interest around this topic, despite how many times it may have been brought to them before?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the kind of CMO. Some are very data driven and others aren't. I don't know, Isaac, are you data driven, or are you more go by intuition, gut feel?
I'm not anti-data, but I've got to, that's not the way I'm naturally wired.
Fair enough. I didn't mean to call you out, but
no, it's a totally fair call out. So trust me, anybody who's worked with me, it's not going to come as a surprise to them.
Yeah, no. And but if you have a CMO who is data driven, right, there are, like I mentioned, those data points that, if you're a technology company, you typically know, hey, if we've got 2, 3, 4 integrations in place, we know, right, that our retention rate goes up, our net retention rate goes up, those sorts of things, right? So that kind of data, so you go, great, let me help you, right, as the CMO with that side of the business by bringing partners to the table, right? And let's think about how we can leverage this data and leverage, knowing, hey, which of our customers are customers of these other technologies, and then you can build campaigns to go after those companies, or you can work with your or enable your CSN team, right? Because that's the thing is, this has been another shift, I'd say, in the last 5 to 7 years, is CMOs being responsible for, full life cycle revenue, not just net new logo revenue, right? And so something like this partner stuff is really going to speak to them from that perspective. And then, like I said, we all have seen the endless, it feels like, layoff announcements on LinkedIn, right? So, and guess who gets cut when it comes to layoffs? Typically the marketing team, right? The marketing team ends up with less people, less budget, right? And so the marketing team needs to learn how to be more efficient, more effective. And so, like I said, layering in partner data and partner collaboration is going to do just that for them, right? And so the CMOs have to kind of consider that as an option, as a venue for them.
I love that. And if you have a CMO that is not as data driven, to me, it's like, if you can get me in the head of the customer and show me the causal chain. So if you're coming with stats, hey, deals with partners, have this much faster time to close, and that, these, I'm going to say like, okay, that's fine. That's believable. But I want to know like what's actually going on there. Why would that be the case? Can you get me inside the head of the customer? Can you give me some examples of customers' behavior that's like, and that's part qualitative, part quantitative. Hey, here's what customers are actually doing. This is what their journey looks like. They're talking to these partners. They're asking them, hey, who do you integrate with? Or when a partner, says, hey, you should talk to this person, right? That's how those intros are happening. Like giving me sort of the logical chain of events and proving to me that bringing partners into that journey is going to be what customers actually want. And there's some indication that not just the stat, which tells you the end result, it's the scoreboard, but like, how did we get down the field? What plays actually happened? And show me where partners were in those plays. I'm all in. Like, I got to see a couple examples of that to get the aha moment. So yeah, that's a really interesting, that's a really interesting and useful distinction you made. Like, depends on what kind of CMO you have, what kind of, how you're going to convince them to tap into partners.
Yeah. Well, and fortunately I have a CMO who has a partner background, so she's all in, right? But, especially for us, and, because people always ask like, oh, what size company should be doing ABM? And, my answer is typically all, but, for a company like ours, a services firm like ours, right? Like we're 50 people. We're not that big. We don't have that big of a database. We've been in existence for 7 years. And most of our business to date has been through word of mouth, or when CMOs move from one company to the next, they take us with them, right? And that's how we've grown. And that organic growth is great, but it's not going to achieve our aggressive growth goals for the next 5 years, right? So that's where partnerships came in, because it's like, great, here's how we can punch above our weight, right? So for any company on here who's like smaller in nature, partnering with your partners that, once again, are just going to help amplify your message, get you to a new audience, get new audience members into your database as a result of the partnering, is a really smart way to go about it. Because, I had a very healthy marketing budget when I was at Demandbase. My marketing budget is significantly smaller here at Inverta, right? And so I have to get creative with how to make my marketing dollars go further. And once again, partnerships is just a crucial way to do that.
Yeah. Everybody's marketing budgets are definitely squeezed. And when it comes to things like events or virtual events, just the ability to reduce your cost alone, you bring in one partner, split the cost, and you increase the reach. You probably don't double it, but you definitely increase it if you're bringing in, people from each of your networks. And that's just, it's such a no-brainer, but it's something that it's like, if you're running your typical marketing motion, you're not thinking about it. But when you stop and say, okay, we got to get serious about costs, that's where you can start to look and say, okay, which partners make the most sense? You don't want to just be random. Which partners make the most sense here for us to actually do that with, and start to get some of those savings in those joint campaigns.
Yeah. And all of this, I think, probably falls under the umbrella of the term Nearbound, right? That you guys are really socializing in the marketplace. It's like everybody knows about inbound, right? There's even a whole conference about it. Outbound has been, kind of the next generation that came along with account-based marketing. And now I think, kind of the third iteration is now adding Nearbound.
That's exactly right. I didn't even pay you to say that. But that's, we're seeing that's connecting, because it's layering into your inbound and your outbound, tapping into people your buyers already trust, or they already have some kind of connection with, for intel, intros, and influence. Like in your sales process, in your marketing process, it's kind of just becoming a necessity. So kind of putting some language around it and trying to get more deep about it. And that's what these sessions are exactly for. Like, okay, what are some ways we can actually do this? And this is a great example of pulling in that, Nearbound play into your account-based marketing. Any final thoughts? Jessica, I just realized, by the way, to those who are here listening and to those who will be watching the recording, we totally messed up and did not send the, hey, the session is starting email. It did not go out. We thought it did. So a lot of people who were registered did not ever get that email. So I am sorry. You'll probably be watching this on the recording. That's on us. But every Wednesday at the same time, Jessica was like, oh, you should have a recurring calendar invite. Now is all the more reason that we should have a recurring calendar invite so that we're not reliant on that email going out at the right time. So any final thoughts or things you want to point people to, if they want to go a little bit deeper into getting some ABM stuff going?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I've done a lot of talking, so thank you for
good.
for putting up with me. But no, I mean, I think, definitely if you haven't looked into technology like Reveals, I think now is the time, right? I mean, you can get started without having to have like big upfront tech investment. It's just going to turn the lights on, right? I think very quickly you're going to realize, oh, there's a gold mine of data here. Okay, now I need to connect it in, and it's worth putting as a line item on my tech audit for the rest of this year or even rolling into 2024. I can't believe I just said that, but yes, we're hitting the second half of the year. Time to start thinking about 2024. But I think that's definitely a really important part. I think I just think it's so important to be bringing partnerships into the fold more than just this kind of add-on discipline that sometimes we make use of and sometimes we don't. And I think for all partner marketers out there, like, please, the one thing is, do yourselves a favor and make your job more than just going out and getting sponsorships for your annual customer conference or field marketing events. This data and what you can bring to the table as far as that reach and that efficiency is far more valuable to the organization. Sure, you're still always going to be asked to get those sponsorships. It's, part of what we do. But I think, making it a much deeper discipline is going to be really important. And then, to put the shameless plug for Inverta, if you're trying to figure out how to do all this, we're here to help. We've done this with a lot of different companies. We're starting to build up a little bit of this discipline around Nearbound, thanks to Kevin's prodding of us. But I think it's worthwhile, and I think the time is now, and I think the data's there, and I think the technology's there. So it's really time to start doing that. So let us know if we can help.
I love it. Exciting stuff. We've got the next session next week, same time, Wednesday, noon Eastern. We've got Darian from the team at Reveal, and he's going to walk through some kind of like some more unusual use cases. So for example, you mentioned events, running event lists through Reveal, looking for those overlaps and some cool plays that you can utilize there. So there's kind of some like off the beaten path, pretty interesting use cases that are pretty fun to mess around with. So we're going to walk through some of those next week. Appreciate it, Jessica. And look forward to seeing everybody at the next one.